Chris Charm for KaijuPop.com, and welcome to This Month in Gaming History as we look at June 1984. And making the news this month was this guy and his beard. Well, not quite. Alexei Pidgeotnob was making waves in Russia, but nowhere else in June of 1984, with his game called Tetris. He was kind of mathematically minded and obsessed with the idea of tetrominos, and the idea of tessellating shapes, and created this puzzle called Tetris, which came out on Electronica 60 computers, these I don't know, mainframe computer things, and was incredibly successful on these little Russian PCs. And of course, this being Soviet Russia, where Tetris owns you, I guess, Pejinov didn't have the rights to Tetris. Tetris belonged to the Russian government, I guess, where it stayed. Tetris stayed in Russia for years, but sort of, managed to get everywhere throughout Russia, as far as games could get back in those days and in Soviet Russia. And, eventually copies leaked out as far as Hungary, where they were chanced upon by a few other sort of Western-minded developers, and eventually Spectrum Holobyte would release a couple of versions of Tetris in 87 and 88. Of course, Spectrum Holobyte never really owned the rights. They weren't really allowed to have Tetris, and Russia had licensed Tetris to a company called Elorg. And at that point, everything gets so muddy. There's the story of Tetris licensing rights is incredibly complicated. And if you really want to know more about Tetris, I recommend you seek out Tetris from Russia with Love, which is a great documentary about the making of that game. But eventually, what happens was that there were three figures sort of in the Tetris scenario, along with Spectrum Holobyte, and key among them was Hank Rogers. Hank Rogers was in Japan at the time, where he had a publisher called Bulletproof Software that were putting games out for the Famicom, for the NES. But he was also very, very close to Nintendo upper management at the time, and Hank Rogers had managed to secure the Famicom rights to Tetris and produced a version of Tetris for the Famicom. At the same time, Elorg decided that the arcade rights hadn't been licensed, so they gave the rights to the arcade version of Tetris to Atari. And Atari, thinking that they had the rights to all of Tetris, put out a version of Tetris on the NES under their non-Atari publishing arm Tengen, which was the company name they used to produce NES cards. And by the way, Tengen cartridges, as an aside, weren't licensed by Nintendo, thanks to the falling out that Nintendo and Atari had earlier in 1984. You can check out last month's video for more information on that. And so, basically they put this version of Tetris out. Nintendo said, well, hey, you don't have the rights, Hank Rogers does. By this time, Hank Rogers had sort of agreed to give Tetris over to Nintendo. So Nintendo had or was making their own version of Tetris for the NES, and would basically co-op Hank Rogers' Bulletproof Software version of Tetris for the NES Tetris and for the infamous Game Boy Tetris at this point. So Nintendo stamped on Tengen, and Tengen Tetris was only available for 4 weeks before being yanked. So Tengen Tetris became one of the most sought after and collectible NES carts of all time. And Bulletproof Software's Tetris is still reasonably rare, although it's not too hard to find. And then from there, Tetris is an interesting tale. There were official sequels, none of them were very good, and then it kind of went into the wilderness, and there was an awful lot of very strange Tetris games and some good, some bad, that's still around today, and Tetris is a licensed thing that gets bounced around between THQ, EA, and a whole bunch of other players. But at the time, it was just this initial, weird green screen, very, very simple game. But yeah, let's go from things that we couldn't play in June 1984, unless we were behind the Iron Curtain, to things that we could. Owners of Nintendo platforms would have to wait to get their hands on Tetris for a couple of years, but what Famicom owners could get this month was Hogan's Alley from Nintendo. Another light gun game. It seems Nintendo were consistently supporting their light gun, what would be the Zapper in the West, releasing a game pretty much one a month or every other month for the system. First we had Wild Gunman, then Duck Hunt, and now this, Hogan's Alley. And there's not much to say about it. Again, it's a do-over, a redux of an old Nintendo arcade attraction, which used video, it used film to project a scene of walking through an alley and shooting at bad guys. As here, this is obviously much more NES sprite-ized and a good deal more cartoony. You've got to shoot the bad guys and avoid the good guys, and it starts as this sort of gallery shooter, and it moves on to kind of more of a street scene in the other modes as well. There's not too much to say about it, but yeah, Nintendo was still slowly and steadily supporting the Famicom, and slowly and steadily supporting the light gun. British release this month was Sabre Wulf on the Spectrum, a game which I'm having a hell of a time playing thanks to the control system that, at least on keyboards, I have no idea what the original was like this, but that relied on QWRET, that as a control setup. That's like well known and makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It's an adventure game of sorts, very different to the sort of isometric puzzle solving stuff that was in a lot of earlier Ultimate works. Ultimate, of course, would later become known as Rare, and yeah, this is, I don't know, for whatever reason, it wasn't as good, it wasn't as well received as a lot of their later efforts, a lot of their other efforts, I should say, a Tic Attack included, which came out the year before. But for whatever reason, it was one of those things that got held up as being quintessentially rare enough for them to, rare in the ha-ha sense, and ultimate enough, I suppose. It became, oh god, there's no words to describe how awkward the controls are here. I get it, but even at the time, I think, it's like always options for using Kempston joysticks. Nobody had those things, really, at the end of the day. It's they're about as prevalent as people having controllers for their iOS devices, fine idea in theory, but it's just like nobody had these things. You are this guy that you're an explorer that has fallen into this jungle. You've got to get out. You face all kinds of horrible beasties, including the titular Sabre Wulf, and it's got that Spectrum color palette with all of their stuff popping up. You've got a sword, which works with some enemies but not with others. Things pop up all over the place and just constantly want to kill you. It's a game that probably made sense at the time, was reviewed quite well at the time, but really does age quite poorly. And for whatever reason, as I said, it was something that was kind of, I don't know, held up as, hey, this is one of Rare's sort of most famous pieces of work, so that, or one of Ultimate's, oh great, the same problem we'll see later on in Evil Dead. One of Ultimate's most famous pieces of work pre-Rare. So this would be a game that would be directly and indirectly recycled twice. In 1994, Sabre Wulf, the Sabre Wulf, would appear as a playable character in Killer Instinct. And then in 2004, at the 20th anniversary of this game, no, damn, we're only 1% complete there. Then Sabre Wulf would be re-released as kind of a completely different thing, really, on Game Boy Advance. And I think, by that point, you're free of the burden of nostalgia that kind of fairly well got hammered critically and commercially. So yeah, shame to say, but Sabre Wulf really doesn't hold up 30 years on. But it holds up an awful lot better than the next two games we're going to look at. License games, they're all over the place once you get into summer, and one of those was a license game. License game about the TV show Dallas, and that's what we're playing now. This is Dallas Quest, or The Dallas Quest. It's the one, it's the only one, and oh god. Oh, that's awful. Mears. Oh, stop it. Oh, come on. Oh no, not that. Oh, thank goodness for that. This is a text adventure, but it was one of those text adventures that were coming out in the 80s, where they thought, just text all that text, that's very 70s and boring. So we'll have pictures of JR and things, or am I JR? I don't know. I think I am JR in this. So I'm gonna take the rifle that's over there and then shoot JR, and I can't fire that. Okay, so Sue Ellen's about, so I'm gonna do that. You can't fire Sue Ellen. No, she works for me. I just like fire rifle, fire the rifle. You know what I mean? It's dangerous to fire a weapon indoors, so it's full of that sort of bollocks. It's sort of what? It's an American thing. Talk to Sue Ellen. Actions speak louder than words. Oh god, you have to do everything. You have to do everything that the game wants you to do in the order you do it. Punch Sue Ellen. You want to punch her? What? No. Okay. So then you go north, and then you're in a different room. You're in the den. So you see the desk, and then you go examine the desk. The desk is closed, so let's open the desk. There you go over there. So the desk is open now. Examine the desk again. The desk's open, and that's useful. So again, you go north, and then all of a sudden you've reached the edge of the map now. But this is quite good because it scrolls. Look at that. It's almost pseudo 3D, and there's a turn counter that's building up the number of commands that I've done thus far. So presumably that's going to factor into the score if I made it to the end of the game, which I won't. So yeah, at least they didn't make it into a platform game. Where did Sue Ellen go? Where did she go? Come on, go east. You're in the entryway. The front door is to the south. You see an envelope. It's full of that sort of thing. At least you could see what was kind of happening in this game. Wow, nice. Take tickets. You already have the envelope? Oh, I suppose so. Go to football game. You can't go there. Why not? Let's go outside. What the? There was a big mistake. It seems JR paid these two burly rats. So I'm not JR? Okay. To prevent your escape from Southport. I'm stuck. You are no match for them. Put up a good fight, but you're soon knocked out. And then you're dead, and that's Dallas Quest that came out in June 1984. It's not very good though. Looking to the cinema for inspiration instead of the the TVs, it's Evil Dead on C64 this month. A conversion Spectrum did come later, but it was never an official standalone deal. It was, wow, that's always loud. It was a part of a compilation, the B-side of another title that saw the Evil Dead come to the Spectrum. But both games pretty much the same. The idea is that you are Ash, the fella from the movies, and you've got to explore this house. Press fire button to open windows and also attack other baddies, but like your energy is constantly going down. So the idea is you've got to be careful and shut windows and rescue the humans. But you've got to like slam windows in monster faces. Apparently he turns into a monster. Oh dear. Never mind. Yeah, more sort of weird beastie things rather than zombies per se, but I don't know. The idea is I suppose it's reasonably similar to the film as I understand it anyway. Including the bit in the film where you get sandwiched in, where the Ash gets sandwiched in between two monsters and then constantly dies because he's got no way out of it. You'll just respawn in between them again. Oh dear. But the idea is, you've got to run around this cabin, find the Book of Evil, and then I don't know. Then you win it. You win the game. You win the Book of Evil, I suppose. It's not the worst licensed game. It certainly wouldn't be the worst licensed game. I actually quite like the idea of opening and shutting windows to prevent monsters coming in. But despite all that, yeah, not ideal and kind of I don't know, snivelled on and not exactly treated with reference in retrospect was Evil Dead on C64 this month. But tell you what, why don't we take a break from monster slaying and horror and what? I don't even know what happened there. And head into something a little bit more, well, a little bit better put together. Not quite a licensed game, but still trying to be authentic, was Revs on the BBC this month. You don't really see BBC games get talked about in a retrospective sense, but Revs certainly does. It was the first game from Jeff Crammond, who went on to release a bunch of games in the Formula 1 Grand Prix series, and was just about to have his big breakthrough with Stunt Car Racer a couple of years later on the Amiga and whatnot. But Revs on the BBC would later get ported to the C64, but this is the original BBC version, was really something remarkable for the time. Just that initial collision and a car spinning kind of realistically. This would never ever happen. Even the first person viewpoint is reasonably rare. This kind of attempt at 3D mapping, a pseudo 3D kind of viewpoint. Incredibly rare and difficult to pull off on the BBC, but this was, actually kind of a realistic car handling experience, where you set up your car, you race a full grid of Formula 3, as this was based on, cars, and it was reasonably realistic in a handling sense as well. So yeah, I mean, from compared to games at the time, whether it be on arcades or on computers, this was something really quite remarkable, and certainly cemented Jeff Crammond as a technical expert, and squeezing an awful lot from a humble 32K computer. Yeah, certainly he would be much more fondly known, I suppose, for his work with the Formula 1 license. later on, but Revs at the time, really something pretty special. But let's move on from licensed games now and have a look and see what's next.
Another visitor. Stay a while. Stay forever.
That iconic piece of speech brings us to today's last game, Impossible Mission on C64 by Epix, which came out in June of 1984. What this is a sort of puzzle platformer adventure game that's also kind of, it has roguelike elements, was inspired by Rogue, and in that it has random layouts for each of its, every time you play the game, and we need passwords to be able to do that. Ooh dear, can I reset? No, I need passwords to do that. Basically, the idea, I suppose, as I say, inspired by Rogue, also inspired by Mission Impossible, kind of spy-like adventure gaming. What you're charged with doing is collecting different elements for a password to get into some bad man's lair. Whoa, that was stupid. And so what we need to do all the time is there's usually risk reward. So there's robots patrolling each and every room, and you have to use the lifts to get places, and then like, oh, do I have time to search through here to find a puzzle piece for my puzzles, and the puzzles are what make up the passwords, which let you gain access to the computers and then disable the bad guy robots and things like that. You need to bugger off. Ow. So there's a kind of unique approach to fail states in Impossible Mission. Well, you need for the time, bugger. In that what you have to do here is complete the entire game in, I think you have 6 hours to do it, and then every time that you die, you lose time in the game. So it's not, I mean, you can die as much as you want, but you eventually will lose time, the overall time you have to beat the game. And so you're collecting these puzzle pieces, and then when you're in these elevator lift screens, I can hit fire in here, and then I can go through and arrange the puzzle pieces that I have. And I don't have any puzzle pieces really, but I did pick up from that, what I grabbed there, the snooze function that lets me sleep the baddies on one particular screen. And so you're gradually building up a collection of puzzle pieces, and then you have to arrange those to form the password at the end using these functions. I can flip things, I can move them up and down and whatnot. So I have to use this interface to solve the game, and all the while I'm under the pressure of time, and the clock in the bottom right is running in real time there. I can also call for help and hints. Nothing here. Yeah, I don't have any puzzle pieces right now. But authentic telephone sound effects there, fantastic. But also relevant. Let's get out here. Was the sound effect you heard at the beginning, which was synthesized speech, and of an extreme rarity, just in. Brilliant. Extreme rare. I'm still falling. Let's do that again. An extreme rarity in home computer games at the time was synthesized speech. There we go. So I can use the snooze piece that I picked up earlier on. And now, how am I gonna make that jump over there so I can actually get up to that desk? I don't know. But I've wasted. I've wasted my puzzle piece. I could just keep falling down this platform forever. Yeah, so that is an example of the synthesized speech that's running here. It is speech synthesis. It's not captured from real actors, but this is a point where people were experimenting with speech. You had things like, on consoles, the Intellivision voice module, and things like that. That were gradually sort of coming out and appearing. So speech was the thing, and it's like this. I'm going to move to a different floor. One of the nice things about the layout is I can just hop out and then hop in. But all of these rooms are randomly generated, as I said, so it takes a different approach every time. You don't know what you're going to get. But yeah. So this.
Destroy him, my robot.
Brilliant. The destroy him, my robots. Another visitor. Stay a while, stay forever. This black thing that's coming after me. Move down. Just really atmospheric, and kind of awesome and creepy. There's just like this such creepy atmosphere in this game. No. I love it. It's brilliant. Speech was the thing at the time because we were a few months away from Deus Ex Machina, which would kind of go down as, I think, one of the first, if not the first, video game with celebrity voice actors in. So that was kind of what helped garner Impossible Mission an awful lot of attention. Was just this phenomenal for the time speech. Another thing that garnered it a lot of attention was this great running animation and the somersaults and things like that. So this was not rotoscoped. It was picked out and actually apparently from a book on athletics, and the animations here existed long before the game did. Was this started out as an idea of hey, let's just animate this guy doing cool somersaults and things, and then the game emerged from it. And I keep on going into every single one of these rooms and not finding a single achievable task for my rubbish skills. I also should have saved that robot freeze thing, so I could have used it. Let's go over here. Okay, so I can get something from here. And searching, this took forever. This was one of the things that was sped up in the Amiga Redux, which came out. There's nothing there. You search for that long, there's nothing there, but I did cram an entire desk into my pockets. This was one thing that was sped up in the Redux that came out on Amigas 10 years later. But the Redux also added all sorts of terrible mini games to it. There's a couple of mini games in this when you're solving password things. Obviously the entire puzzle piece gimmick is kind of a mini game in and of itself, and there's also kind of a variant of Simon that you play to get through and hack into some computers. Get in here. Yeah, such this, whatever the heck that is. And sometimes you're at the mercy of the game's random generation here. There is no way that I can make that platform on the left. Especially as I don't have a freeze command to use, and in fact I'm pretty much stuck here. So that kind of sucks. But let's see if I can move back up here. I'm gonna have to exit stage right, I think. Yeah, dissolve. of and fade away, fade away. So that's one other way of resetting the lefts in the room, is just die, you'll be good. But of course you're losing time every time you do that. But yeah, I mean, the remake kind of kludged things by adding weird sort of shooter things. You can, if you watch our June 1994 history video, which will be up soon if not already, then you can see some Impossible Mission 2025, which was just balked. I mean, it had none of the character that this does, and you know, it sort of had weird sort of urban street scenes to everything, whereas, you know, really it should be in this bizarre mad scientist's lab, complete with arcane computer technology, you know, with these tape reels spinning in the background. Go up! Ah, you bugger. Let's see. Let me give this one more shot. There we go. No! Fade away. So yeah, Impossible Mission on C64 is incredibly well reviewed, incredibly highly rated, and would kind of go down as one of the best games on its platform. And even today, I mean, I think we're sort of overdue a proper redo of Impossible Mission. Maybe now, 30 years later, someone can do it justice. But, you know, I mean, that's the appeal. These days, roguelikes are incredibly popular in the indie space, so, I mean, you'd have thought that this would work again, perhaps, but yeah, it certainly, it was an incredibly impressive game in 1984, and it feels kind of modern today. You bastard. Yeah, it's well worth hunting down, and there's plenty of ways to play this in browsers and as ROMs and things like that. So yeah, check out Impossible Mission, the C64 version, coming out in June 1984. And that's it for June 1984. For more stuff on games old and new, check out kaijupop.com. And also check out at the end of May, we should have our full written feature, which goes in depth on games released in June 1984, 94 and 2004 as well. So do give that a read. In the meantime, Chris Charlton for kaijupop.com. Thanks for watching. Bye. Let's see, I'm going to take them all the way over to the left. I just want that dying scream to be part of things. It was further away than I thought. It was up here, wasn't it? Oh no! Right down. It was in this part. Ready? Ready? I'll edit this bit out. Bless.